It's much more efficient. I'll make believe you are who you think you are if you make believe I am who I think I am. And we'll get along fine. The predicament is, since we are so many people, both of us, it's very complicated. Because who do you meet each morning? You've changed. Of course. What'd you expect? Gandhi was once leading a march, salt march, or not the salt march. He was leading a march, and he stopped it, and he told all the people to go home. And his lieutenant said, Mahatmaji, you can't do that. People left their jobs. This is a big deal. He said, God is absolute truth. I only know relative truth, and my understanding of truth changes from day to day. And I'm afraid my commitment must be to truth, not to consistency. See, but social institutions, it's tricky not to be consistent. I mean, is that fiscally responsible? But a real marriage is living truth. A real relationship between human beings is alive because each person reinvests it with living stuff. I mean, the reason churches often lost it, and they're kind of with cold sanctuaries, is because everyone went to get something and took it away till there was nothing left. But if you come and you reinvest it, because the living spirit comes through the human heart, it doesn't come through stones. You reinvest it, then all those rituals and all that stuff turns back in. The Eucharist is the Eucharist, and the sacrament, and all of it works. But you got to invest it. So we at SEVA wanted to create an institution that would be true to our hearts, and that's not easy to do. I mean, it demands a kind of truth that scares the hell out of us most of the time, and most of us, we fall on our faces when we try. Because we each want to protect our space so much. And we saw that in our hearts was a quality of compassion that we wanted to exercise. We came together as a group because we wanted to serve people and relieve suffering. But it turns out that relieving suffering is very difficult. It's easy to do good. It's hard to do good well. And often when you think you're relieving suffering, it turns out you're just kidding yourself and you were creating more suffering in your zeal to get rid of some suffering. And that's a nightmare. And when you try to do good, I was just trying to do good. And since none of us know, all we can keep doing is being really humble and honest and human and realize we fall on our face again and again, and we stand up and we look at each other and we publicly say, hey, everybody, just fell on my face again. And here we go, we'll try again. Because we have to honor our humanity. Because a good organization is filled with humans. It's not filled with gods. We are, but we don't know it. The reason I'm talking about SEVA so much tonight is because SEVA started in Chelsea, Michigan. And now it's in Nepal and Guatemala and the Dakotas with the American Indians, and it's in California and western Massachusetts, and it's in tens of thousands of people's hearts around the world. It's in India. For me, joining with a group of other human beings to try to do good feeds my heart. It cultivates the quality of compassion in me. And by giving my fellow members of the community of SEVA license to call me when they feel I'm losing it, painful though it is, by the way, Because each of us get caught in righteousness or in somebodyness. And for me, for example, I'm a front person, as you can see. And that has its traps. You can get caught in being somebody. And it takes true friends to tell you, hey, RD, you're losing it. What do you mean I'm losing it? Because I fight back. Because when you're asleep, you really protest waking up. Just 5 more minutes. Just let me be somebody 5 more minutes. It's the nobody patrol. Come on. So we practice living, as Gandhi said, my life is my message. We practice living the inner truth that we know to be true. So we look at this Guatemalan woman or this Nepali doctor or whatever, whoever, whether they're without judgment, but just with the quality of love you feel towards the beloved. And it's exciting and scary at the same moment. And it's far out to love people so much, and yet you're also in charge of the budget. You know what that's like as a father or a mother? Many of you must know. The kid you love, you want the kid to be happy, but you can only give him $1 for allowance. And you really have to go behind the vehicle for being with people in order to really be with them, and then do what you can do. Sometimes with somebody that's frightened and dying, all I can do is just sit with them and hold their hand and be with them. And my being doesn't have conditions. I'm not dying their death for them. I'm an environment in which they do what they need to do. And so we practice, and we see who it is turns our hearts off. Because as Kabir the poet said, do what you do with another human being, but never put them out of your heart. For years during the last administration, I had terrible problems with Caspar Weinberger. So I took his picture and I put it on my holy table. There was Buddha, and there was Christ, and there was my guru, and then there was Caspar Weinberger. In the morning, I'd light my incense and, good morning, Christ. Good morning, Buddha, Buddham, Saranam Gacchami. Good morning, Maharaji. Hello, Caspar. And then I saw how far I had to go yet. That my heart was like an accordion. And I realized that I had to get to the point where I could say, Caspar, I will oppose your acts. I don't agree with them. I don't think they reflect the deepest compassion. And yet, my heart is open to you as a fellow being. You and I are just learning how to do that. We're so used to closing down around no. Just say no. It's not far out that this culture would end up with a motto like just say no. My God, it's the ultimate alienation. Just say no. And the way they mean it is no. I mean, it's not no. Been practicing no, 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 no. I'm just saying no, no, no. I'm spelling it K-N-O-W. No, 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 no. The Dalai Lama says, meet everybody as if you already know them. It's a beautiful image. He didn't give the tough version. I mean, I don't think he felt it was appropriate for our culture. See everybody as your mother. He knew we weren't ready for that one. So in about a couple of minutes, we're going to take an intermission, but don't move yet. I got a few more things to say. Because the beauty of the intermission is that this is a family gathering. This is a gathering of consciousness. And if you just try it with the approach, everybody here is somebody you know already, it makes it much more interesting. Because it's like a party. It's at your house, you know. Hello. I haven't seen you this whole incarnation. Oh, what fun. At intermission, there's all kinds of spiritual materialism out in the lobby. I mean, I don't knock it. It's great fun. And those of you that are aficionados of Neem Karoli Baba, who is the meta rascal, I'm a rascal in training. He's a meta rascal. You got to be a really loving rascal. There's a new book, By His Grace, which takes you into the next subtle realm. Yeah. And for those of you that are in service things and are dealing with issues like burnout, you would really enjoy the book, How Can I Help, that Paul Gorman and I did a couple of years ago, because that deals with suffering and how we deal with suffering, how we open to suffering. Because when you closed against suffering and become professionally warm, watch it. You're going to be a hungry ghost year long. Yeah, and it's hard. On the back of the handouts that we gave when you walked in, there is a little coupon. And SEVA is, I think, really a leading-edge organization. I mean, to me, it's a thrill. I'm 11 years into it, and it's got me completely hooked to keep it alive. And we publish periodicals that spell out all the ways we fall on our faces, as well as the beauty of the process. And it's kind of nice for compassioners to hang out together. So if you would like to hang out through the the periodicals, we'll of course hustle you, but that's okay, you can handle that. If you can fill out that little coupon and put it in one of the boxes out in the lobby, that would be nice. SEVA is, I think, a representative for all of us of what we're trying to do in terms of coming out into the world in a compassionate way. And our appetites are obviously bigger than our stomachs. And at the moment, we are facing the fact that a lot of villages in northern Guatemala and the plains Altiplano, are facing a drought because the crops didn't come in, and so there's all kinds of emergency money needed. And we're building a hospital in Buddha's birthplace in Nepal, and a lot of things that are happening. So if you have tonight, I know you paid a lot of money to come here, but if you have an extra $5 or $10 or $20 or a check for $100 or $1,000, I mean, a lot of people have money sitting in their bank in which they would like it used as consciously as it could be to relieve suffering by humans like them that are doing it as best they can. Because often you give money to stuff and you don't know where it's going, and huge amounts sort of stick along the way and stuff. And I just want to invite you to allow SEVA to be the conduit for that money, if you have that little extra money. After the intermission, all the loose threads I left before the intermission we'll clean up. And we'll have questions. Those of you who want to come back, well, the intermission will be about a half hour. Those of you who want to come back, we'll have questions and answers, or a discussion, and we'll probably have a meditation. But the important thing for the intermission is that this is your community. So say hello to the family. See you soon. Just find a way to be quiet for a little while. Just being with what is. With the sensations in your body, or the thoughts that are passing through your mind, or the sounds, or the tastes. Just letting them come and go. Becoming aware of your breath. And as if your chest had nostrils right in the middle of it, feel that you're breathing in and out of the middle of your chest. And as if when you breathe in, you're filled with a quality of softness and light and a healing energy. And as you draw it in through the chest, it pours into your arms and your legs and up into your head and through your torso. And you're filled with that light, that soma, that elixir, that quality of healing presence. And then when you breathe out any stuff that just becomes dislodged, that you don't need anymore, like tension or fear or whatever. Don't push it away. Just if it gets dislodged, breathe it out, and then refill with that softness. Do that for a few times. And when you have dislodged what can be dislodged, then just allow yourself to be a conduit through which that light pours. So you breathe it in, and then you breathe it out, and you send it out from the middle of your chest in all directions. A quality of light, of love, of presence, a healing quality, a soft quality. C.S. Lewis said, "You don't see the center because it's all center. Your heart is the center of the universe." Experience that as you breathe out in all directions, that quality of sweet light. Draw it in, fill with it, send it out. Now imagine that surrounding you in concentric circles as far as the mind can imagine are beings, all beings. All beings human, all beings of all species, all beings past and future as well as present. All beings on all planes. And from the center of your heart, you send out blessings to all these beings. You assume your role as a conduit through which blessing flows. There is a loving kindness meditation in one of the traditions. I will use 4 lines from it. The last one we will break into parts. I'll say the line, and then if it feels good in your heart to repeat it, we'll repeat it together. If not, just be quiet and listen. It's the way the mind guides that flow that comes out of the heart. May all beings everywhere be free from danger. May all beings everywhere be free from danger. May all beings everywhere be free from mental suffering. May all beings everywhere be free from mental suffering. May all beings everywhere be free from physical suffering. May all beings everywhere be free from physical suffering. May all beings everywhere be enabled to carry out their lives. May all beings everywhere be enabled to carry out their lives in peace and happiness. In peace and happiness. Any questions? Points to be talked about? Feel free to raise your hands. Anything's okay. Yes? She says, in talking about planes in which there is a plane where we merge with the source, do we ever lose our individuality? The answer is yes and no. We never had it to begin with, so we can't lose it. And as long as you want it, you'll have it. And when you aren't, it will be. You'll lose who you think you are, but the form is always the multiplicity of all of it. And that just stays multiplicity. It's not, nothing's happening. It's there and it's not there. So yes and no. But don't worry about it. Really. Yes, yes, yes. When I lose it into judgment, it's mainly about humans, I notice. I mean, I don't judge trees. I really just appreciate trees, but I judge humans. And once I saw that, it gave me a clue. You know, how come I judge humans and I don't judge trees? You know, trees are different than each other, and I can enjoy their difference. But humans, if you were only, if I only had a little more hair. Well, and so I turned it into, every time I caught myself judging, I started to appreciate. It became an exercise for me in flipping judgment into appreciation. And I started to practice doing that. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a good device, though. It's a good device. And I don't get too uptight when I keep losing it, because that's part of the sweetness of my humanity. And what goes under comes up, and what comes up goes down. So highs and lows are just passing show anyway. You get kind of, you're doing it full blast, but there's nothing to do, and it's all okay. It's this kind of funny place of, you go beyond being patient. Questions? Sir? What do I see as being wonderful and unique about the 90s as any other decade? We're here. That I experience most of the time the mentality of humanity is animals trying to survive, and then now and then it shifts so that it's kind of animals beginning to evolve and sharing an awareness of evolution. And it feels to me that kind of energy is available now. It's available. I mean, when President Havel of Czechoslovakia said to Congress, it is only a new kind of collective human consciousness that will be our sort of salvation. That's a pretty far out thing to say to Congress, And they all wanted his autograph. I mean, where's that at? That's how, we have all these new role models appearing, Nelson Mandela and the student in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square, and the Dalai Lama, and these are great beings to have around, and my sense is that there's a little bit of possibility here. That's what I think is fun. Okay? Yeah, in Yugoslavia? Yeah, I think they're... They feel very pure. The whole process feels very pure to me. It feels like pure hearts are able, individually and collectively, under certain conditions, to break through the planes of reality in which it's all available again. And I feel that those phenomena are certainly possible. I mean, I've lived in India where, what we call miracles are a dime a dozen. And you see that that's only, as old Shirdi Sai Baba once said, whose miracles used to ooze out of his toes all the time. I mean, he was just always performing miracles. He said, I give them what they want so they'll want what I give. Because miracles aren't really the thing. They're just the thing for flickering faith. Is that dealing with your question? Yeah. What are my thoughts on an avatar in the New Age? Well, I'll tell you, I'm not too much for astral melodrama. So, I mean, either we are or we aren't. I think if there's a storyline, it'll unfold, but I'm not waiting for anything. It's all seems to be doing fine, and I see it in everybody, and, I'm sure there are beings that come to Earth that have certain functions, and I certainly hope we have lots of them. I'm sure there's one around somewhere. Not here necessarily, but...
Speaking about choosing, how did you choose this group to work with, SEVA Foundation, people themselves? How did you come about that?
Actually, the group was started around another group that had all been involved in the eradication of smallpox in Southeast Asia. And they had all worked together. They were doctors and people that were over there helping to get rid of the last bit of smallpox in the world, so there's no more in the world. And they got so juiced doing that when it was over, it was really hard to go back to regular life. I mean, they went back to Center for Disease Control and University of Michigan and things like that. But it wasn't the same, I mean, this was like such an exciting thing to do. And so that group came together in 78 or 9, and then they added on a few nuts like me and others, and that's how I was just invited in. And I thought, it just came at the moment where I realized that that service was my route, and suddenly I was being invited by the big time players to play along with them, and I thought, wow, sure, why not? And suddenly we were playing with the government of Nepal and all that kind of stuff. What fun! That's how it happened for me. Yes.
As a collective consciousness, how is this spreading through?
As a collective consciousness, how is something to spread into a worldview? My sense is that the power of the individual human heart, and that's what we're seeing in Eastern Europe, and we see it everywhere. We see it in civil rights movements. We see a lot of things of people realizing what they are. They have been so short-shrifting themselves under veils of other institutional structures their mind creates, while they're the thing. And as that recognition, I really think Gandhi's statement, "My life is my message," is the root. That each person becomes it. And that's the way it happens. I don't think it happens through, well, let's plan, let's have a meeting. I don't think it happens that way. I think this is the truth of the heart, and it just keeps spreading. As Mayor Baba said, it spreads from heart to heart. It's catchy. It's that kind of process. And there's a way in which you can feel historically the way it's happened, in which suddenly a certain kind of model of reality, a paradigm, has become real. That it was in a few consciousnesses, and then it resonated sufficiently with some ready truth ready to happen in the collective, that suddenly it was a collective consciousness. And that goes negative as well as positive, I mean, for hysteria as well. So my sense is all we can do is be true to ourselves. Is that dealing with your question?
I guess my word is, what about the role of the traditional religion? How one deal with it?
I think that as you are connected to deeper and deeper spiritual truth in your being, you find in organized religious structures vehicles for the expression of that, because a lot of those all, after all, came out of that same space. And what you often find is that in honoring your incarnation, you find your way back into a religious tradition you might have had, or some religious tradition that expresses that feeling for yourself, and that's it's a social institution that can be used. It's available to be used to carry this kind of message. I mean, we made a distinction between church and state. We shouldn't make a distinction between spirit and state, however. I mean, and the problem is that, I mean, I think institutions must be honored and protected and kept separate and so on, so one doesn't coerce the other. But in both of those can be the living spirit. And I think that when you find an institution in which there's living spirit, wonderful, breathe more life into it or bring life to it and use it in any way you can. I mean, I think the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence are instruments of spirit, and when you can breathe spirit into them, they will come alive in the mouth and the heart of the person using them. Okay? Questions? Sir? Wait, no, that fellow back there. Just relax. Yeah.
You were speaking of the dilemma of being somebody in the world that has set social roles, and at the same time, behind it all, remembering that we're all the same one, and we're really no blood. My difficulty increasingly is not knowing when to just let it go, to suspend the social role, like in the midst of negotiation, or when it comes time to hold somebody to a promise, or what you say, to heck with it. I was love this person anyway. Why?
Yeah. When do you stay in what social role, and how tough do you hang, in what conditions? And the answer is there's no rule book. You listen, and you listen again and again and again, and each minute there's a new moment that is appropriate. And sometimes you hang tough, and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you realize that if you don't hang tough, you're creating new karma for that individual. And so you say no, or whatever. And other times you realize that that's just totally irrelevant, and you let go. Remember, the commitment is to truth, and truth is in the moment, not to consistency. Unless your truth is consistency, which may well be. And then you would be consistent. That's okay, too. You hear what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, you wanted to make a comment about the previous thing about religion and institutions. Yes, sir.
Well, in supporting religious institutions, social institutions, yet so many of them are in conflict with each other, how does that help towards a collective consciousness? You've talked a lot tonight about collective consciousness, how important collective consciousness is tonight, but you haven't talked really about means of achieving that collective consciousness. I mean,
Yeah.
recognize it, but I guess I get towards, I see meditation as a vehicle towards achieving that collective consciousness, and it transcends religious and social institutions.
Well, it does and it doesn't. See, the thing is that every method is a trap. I mean, the worst that happens is you end up a meditator, not free, in meditation. Do you see? It's the same one. It can become a religion, too. So every institution is a potential trap, and everyone can be used for a person for freedom when that's what they really want. So I agree with you that quieting the mind is the way to hear most clearly what is the appropriate action in the next action that you can do to be an instrument of the collective heart and mind. So that meditation is a very useful device. But that you will find that there are different strokes for different folks. And that some people are so heart-oriented that their path is the path of devotion. And their path is the path of loving some form like Christ consciousness or something so deeply that they merge into it through the heart. while others do it through extricating themselves from thoughts that keep themselves separate. Others do it by pitting the mind against the mind with a koan or a Talmudic scholar. Others do it through energy, through Tai Chi or Kundalini. I really hear the variety of ways, others by cooking a bouillabaisse, or surfing or having sex. I really feel that techniques are available, and we've got to match ourselves to the technique to hear which way is through, and that ultimately all of them are traps. Okay? It's interesting. Sir?
Could you expand a bit on your comment about getting in touch with your breathing?
Getting in touch with your breathing. Grieving. Getting in touch with your grieving. That when something has, when something's died, like we have had a kind of an idealistic notion of the way in which the earth would support us under any conditions, and that is something that's not turning out to be the case, because we've really pushed our edge there, and there is a grief reaction about what we've done to ourselves. That's one kind of grief. There can be grief about loss of another person, but whatever it is, it's grief of a loss of a dream or a model or something of the mind. And there's tremendous pain in it. There is a tendency in this culture to, it's the expression before, hang tough, to grieve a little while and then push it away, or be afraid to go towards it because the pain is so deep. And part of learning how to turn around and look at your fear and to open to it and to allow the sadness and the regret and all these qualities to be with you, to keep opening into the depths of them, and to not rush the process. A lot of people try to rush their grief. They try to, do it like for a week and then be done with it. And you can't really do it that way. I mean, grief works its way through. And the more you try to be done with it, the longer it's going to take, actually, until finally you just kind of open and become part of the grief and realize the joy involves all of it. It involves the suffering and the grief and the sadness and all of it. It's not in spite of it. Most of us think we have these categories in our mind. I can be happy if I don't think of the sadness. I won't think of the starving children at this moment so I can have fun. And I'd say that isn't real fun. It's not real happiness. A deep happiness is the happiness that doesn't avert its eyes from what is, and then finds in it a way of saying yes in life. And then there is a deep joy, even with all of the sadness. There is a smile on some of the images of the Buddha. It's called the smile of unbearable compassion. Incredible, just that image. Answer your first question, let's see, tomorrow we go to Chicago, and then it's Minneapolis, St. Paul the next night. I think it's Chicago the night after tomorrow. And then on to, I think, Kansas City, and then on and on and on. Will I come back to Ann Arbor? How can I not, sooner or later? We're still in Chelsea, Michigan, first of all, SEVA, and my heart's still very much connected here. So who knows when, though? That's in God's hands, not mine. I'm just a pawn in the game. I got your third thing, which was the help to the other fellow, but what was your second one? Matthew Fox. Matthew Fox, I read his books. He's certainly... he's a good one. I mean, he's really interesting. I don't know him personally, no. Sir.
I guess first of all, I grew up during the time in which people like you serve a role model and create either now I also, I think there was a magazine called Vampires down into an expose on your sexual life, which is mostly about the fact that you had one. Well, I mean, the fact that you were supposed to be spiritual and then you also had a sexual life and you have to stand up. We talked a bit before about, sort of like being spiritual, and finding yourself in a state of pouring yourself. And, to some extent, I guess, the interest in you is the fact that you are a person who had an enormous kind of effect for the 60s and 70s, still, an ongoing happening person in 1990. And so I guess I'm interested in how, at this point in your life, you integrate your sexuality with your spirituality, whatever the search.
I hear the question. Come up and see my spiritual paintings. It seems excuse me, I'm answering a question, please. One of the ways I've dealt with my sexuality is, first of all, to be very truthful and open about it, and to realize that keeping it secret was a way of cutting myself off from other people. I am bisexual, and I've been put down in public magazines both for my heterosexuality and for my homosexuality, so I'm not discriminating anyway. Or the publications aren't discriminating and putting me down for those things. And what I have learned is that that lust cost me more than it was worth, because the act of lusting made another person an object that I was manipulating for my own gratification. And that after a while, I started to appreciate that deeply enough, and it might have been that I got old enough so I wasn't so horny that I could hear it. But whatever it was, I got to the point where I could hear it enough so that I could see the arousal of desire without identifying with it so strongly that it turned everything into an object for gratification, if you hear that. In other words, cultivating that part of me that is just appreciative of the human predicament, which includes my desires and my fears and my yeses and nos. And I would say that to the extent that my sexual behavior has pathology in it, none of it's gone away. It's all there. I don't think I've gotten rid of one neurosis in all of the years of all my spiritual practices. The only thing that has changed is that instead of these huge monsters that are always about to consume me, they've turned into these little schmoos that, hello, sexual perversity, come on in and have tea, it's that kind of thing. They're sort of style now. They're my style, And everybody says, that's Ram Dass, that kind of thing. So it seems to me that when I say that you are free because of your non-attachment to live with passion in life, it means that your sexual expression, when it becomes free, is in harmony with the deeper truths you know. And it's the kind of sexuality that comes out of love rather than comes out of fear. It doesn't come out of need, it comes out of an abundance of feeling, a quality of feeling. And so I always say, just have sex with your friends, which is a way of saying that. And because then you form the friendship first, and then you wouldn't hurt the person. And my sense is you can do what you do with another human being as long as you don't create more suffering in the process. That's my moral code. Is that dealing with your question?
Yeah,
You're welcome. My pleasure. Yes.
Well, in 1985, I think it was, you and Steve were live in this program saying this is the general hospital exploring the heart healing aids.
Yes.
I used that video tape a lot. I want you to know how much healing the tape has been.
Thank you very much. It is. I'll tell you something. That workshop was about 500 people of, some with AIDS and some doctors and nurses. Stephen and I really feel that touched the heart of the matter. We were really out there with it. And that thing has just gone on and on and on serving. I'm really very, very pleased about it.
That's 1985, the collective consciousness around AIDS today.
Yes.
For those of us who are in the syndrome in the 1990s, what would your message be today? How would it be different if it would be different?
Well, I think that, first of all, there are two levels of answering the question. One is that the perennial philosophy is the perennial philosophy, and it has nothing to do with time. And that is, you're not the illusion, so don't stay so stuck in it. And that doesn't change over time. And that doesn't matter whether you got AIDS or whether you just got a power obsession to become the governor or something. It's stuff is stuff. Okay, that's one level. The other level is that as we evolve technologically, I think we are getting closer and closer to ways of dealing with the virus in a way that is able to do maintenance at this moment anyway. And so I would say that somebody that's HIV positive should, as early as they can, consider and get educated about what the options are, and keep their health up and their vitamins and everything as well as they can, and wait and see what happens, and then put the faith in God. I don't know what else to say. Is that dealing with your question? Yeah. Yes.
Tell us why you chose the Hanuman Foundation and share the Hanuman story.
Where is it?
The Hanuman Foundation? The Hanuman Foundation is a kind of no, it's in New Mexico. It's not a place. It's a Hanuman is a monkey. The shirt is not the belly. The shirt, that's Hanuman. Hanuman is a monkey that is he's part of the Hindu pantheon, and his relationship to Ram, which was God in that particular time span, was the relation of the devotee to God through service. There are many ways the devotee can be related to God, through the beloved, lover and beloved, through mother and child. There are a lot of different forms of bhakti. There are 9 forms. But this one is the one of service, servant to master. And Hanuman lives to serve Ram. And I'm part of the Hanuman lineage. In fact, Ram Das means servant of Ram. So it's one of the names for Hanuman. So I'm really named after a monkey. And when Ram says to Hanuman, "Who are you?" Hanuman says, "When I don't know who I am, I serve you. When I know who I am you." See, and that's the delicate relationship of the God in one and the God in two, and that whole thing of putting flowers at the feet of the thing you are. And so it's that quality. And at one point, Ram gave Hanuman a beautiful jeweled bracelet, as just because of appreciation, because Hanuman was served Ram so beautifully. And Hanuman took the bracelet and started breaking the diamonds and jewels with his teeth and throwing them away. And everybody said, "Why are you so ungrateful?" He said, "It has no value to me because I don't see Ram's name anywhere." And the bear, Jambavan, I think, said to him, "Well, Hanuman, if it's like that, why do you keep your body?" At which point Hanuman ripped open his chest, and there inscribed everywhere was Ram, 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 Ram. And then Ram took Hanuman's chest and put it back together again and said, "He's a very good monkey." That's Hanuman. Sir?
Could you reflect for a moment on the joys and the burdens of spiritual awakening when coupled in an intimate relationship?
The joys and burdens of spiritual awakening when coupled in an intimate relationship. I'm trying to imagine it. It's a great visualization exercise, isn't it? Yes. I can imagine it, yes. The predicament is, I think I talked about it before, that when you, a relationship is an incredible yoga, incredible vehicle for coming to God, but it's hard. It's not easy because you have to go beyond your attraction. And the attraction's what brought you there in the first place, so that the initial force of the relationship has to die into the deeper truth of it. And it's very delicate work, because you try to hold on to the trippiness of it, the kind of, the dualism. And the art of it is it's like a triangle. The art of it is for the two people to find through their way with each other the one that exists behind the two, so that they create this tension of one and two and one and two. So they're one dancing as two, dancing in order to remember the one. And they keep going like that. It's this kind of flickery thing. And it's very exquisite when it's working. All right. It keeps you, because it's a living truth, it keeps you right on the line between chaos and cosmos all the time. You can't predict, well, we'll always be like this. As my guru said, love is the only marriage contract, right? That means the living truth of it for that moment, okay? That's what I would offer. And there are many, obviously, it's difficult not to get lost, but it also gives you an earth grounding that is important for your inner work. And there are individual differences. Some people need to have a partner to get on with it, and others can't use a partner to get on with it. And there's no better or worse. It's just individual difference. Okay? Yes? Trying to what? You're trying to fight racism? Yes. Great. He said that he's in a group on the campus trying to address the issue of racism, and often a lot of anger comes up in members of the group. I speak a lot at peace rallies. It's amazing how angry people are for peace. Isn't it amazing? I mean, I don't know what they expect it'll do, but I want love now. I think people get identified with a cause, with a concept, and they become very ruthless, and they become very judgmental in the presence of that identification. And once you see the predicament of that identification of the mind with the objective, and you realize, then you lose the fact that the means are part of the end. Then you start to work on yourself to extricate yourself by, when you feel frustration because you don't get what you want or things aren't the way you'd like, and you feel that arising, you acknowledge it and notice it. You don't act on it, but you acknowledge it in yourself. And then you keep finding within all that is a presence and a quietness and a listening for the judo move, the move that you can make to bring about a change in a situation that doesn't close your heart in the process. Because if you close your heart, you end up not only starving yourself, but you bring about the opposite result of what you'd like to do, especially in the issue of prejudice. Okay? So, like the Dalai Lama, when somebody said, "Aren't you angry at the Chinese?" He said, "No, of course not. It's not functional. I mean, it's not going to help the Chinese and it's not going to help me." Once you realize that it isn't functional, as it comes up, you just let it go as fast as you can, because it's not going to get you where you want to get to. Like my guru said to me, Ram Dass, I had a lot of anger, and he said, "Ram Dass, give up anger." I said, but you told me also to tell the truth, and the truth is I'm angry. And he said, Ram Dass, give up anger and tell the truth. And he said, give up a little each day, I'll help you. And that's what I've done over the years. I've just tried to let go a little. That doesn't mean I don't stand in opposition to injustice and prejudice. It's the way you do it. And there are ways of doing it without closing the heart, and that's the art form. It doesn't mean you don't do acts of civil disobedience in order to change the laws. It doesn't mean you don't go up and stop a person from an act that creates suffering to other people. But the way you do it is a way that does not exacerbate the problem. Am I dealing with your question? Yes. Yes.
You were somewhat, or I heard you, that you differentiate between doing good and doing well.
Yes.
You almost had a tinge of a little justification for the project of SEVA. In the dance of life, did you address the Judas Christ, dark, the light? How about doing bad? How about doing bad well?
My sense is that that on the world of polarities, or the world of two, when you come down into two, there is good and evil, and these forces are working with each other and against each other. There's a force field in which they both exist. To the extent, let me put it, once I am, like G. Manly Hall said, one who knows not that the Prince of Darkness is but the other face of the King of Light knows not me. Okay? So that's talking about the one that lies behind the two. Once you are resting in the one, then you can do evil well. When you are still caught in your separateness and in the two, then the more conscious you become, the more you want to do good. In other words, it takes chutzpah to do evil, because you have to know where you're doing it from. You have to do it with such love. I mean, there are teachers who beat the shit out of their students, and they do it and they become enlightened because they do it from a place of such love. Do you hear what I'm trying to say? It depends on where you are as to whether or not you can afford it. I can't afford it.
It just seems that it's like the preferred way to get to the one behind through being in opposition of, that which suffers and in opposition.
I'll tell you, it's the paradox. You see that it's all perfect and there's nothing to do, and then you do what you can. But what you do is, since you're starting from a place of entrapment in separateness, and evil is that which increases separateness, from my understanding. Your problem is you're starting from a certain place. I mean, you're really not, but within the other place. But from in this illusion you are, and to get yourself out, you move towards the other one, which is the coming together with things. And that's why you pick that one. Because if you had the other problem, you'd have to go the other way. Because the balance is between the separate and the non-separate. We hear each other. I'm just not saying it as well as you might like, but I'm good. I'm bad. Yes. Emmanuel? Emmanuel, we have about 6 minutes. Those of you that are getting ready to leave. Emmanuel speaks through this woman named Pat Rodegast, and I have no idea who he is. I mean, he may be her vertical schizophrenia for all I know. Doesn't matter to me, because what he says is useful. He's got a great sense of humor. His best one-liner, which I think is one of the best one-liners I've ever heard in my life, when I said to him, Emmanuel, what do I tell people about death? He said, Ram Dass, tell them that it's absolutely safe. And that's an extraordinary one-liner. I mean, really. He said it's like taking off a tight shoe. And The reason he's fun for me is because he's so light and because he's very compassionate. I consider him on some interesting plane. I don't consider him necessarily an enlightened being or anything. I think he's just another being, but I think he's very useful and light and pleasant and caring. I mean, I think he offers his stuff with lightness. I think you've got to be very aware that everybody that doesn't have a body is not wise. You know, there's a tendency, because we can't not have bodies, to assume if somebody doesn't, they must be, which is not true. I mean, there are people that were really trap jerks here, and then they leave and they're trap jerks there, you know, and then they send back, be a jerk. You know, I mean, so you got to trust your own intuitive wisdom. You can't just buy a spook. You gotta judge them very carefully. And Emmanuel doesn't mind, I am sure. If he does, that's his problem. He's delightful. He's delightful, and he deals with most things saying the issue is love versus fear. He keeps coming back to that. The issue is love versus fear, and fear is because you're caught in the separateness and you feel very little and vulnerable. And when you realize you're not, then you can feel that quality of love that keeps merging things. That's the balance, the interesting issue. Sir?
In this very crazy world, do you ever personally wrestle with the choices and your responses at this point?
Do I wrestle with my choices and my responses? I used to, until I saw that it really didn't matter. And that who I thought I was that was making the choices was being had anyway. And that free will didn't exist in who I thought I was. That person was part of a whole codependent arising, a kind of conditional mosaic. And I'm going to make this choice. Of course you're going to make this choice. How could you make any other choice? If you knew what you don't know, you'd know you have to make that choice. So it wasn't a choice at all. So you think you're making a choice. Yes, I think I'm making a choice. Well, that's good. That one too, you know. Now, am I free at all? You asked, as codependent arisingly dependent. Am I free at all? Well, who you are that has no form is free. That in form is not free. So as long as you think you're somebody, you're not. But who you are is free, that is. And you have free will. So that when Christ said, had ye but faith, ye could move mountains, had ye that kind of faith, you would be the mountain, and then you'd know why you were there in the first place. You could move if you wanted to, but why would you? And that's the interesting thing about these beings. As they get further out, they need to do less because there's nothing to do, because it's all fine. I mean, they're just hanging around saying, here we are again, that kind of thing. So, sure, I get caught in thinking I got to choose. And then I kind of giggle, or he giggles. Somebody giggles and reminds me that I'm taking myself with the S word. Questions? Yes. What's the meaning of God? What?
You never really mentioned the term God before the intervention.
Why the term God came up after intermission? No, I understand what you're saying. I'm only kidding. Yes. Well, the term God usually puts people off because it gets them into a trip. Either they go on their God trip, one way or the other, positive or negative, and then they stop listening because they're so busy reacting. And it's just a word. And the thing is that what we're talking about has no name. It's nameless. And so there are the 1,000 names of Vishnu. There are the 99 names of Allah. There are on and on and on. There's all these names, all of which are attributes, but they're not the thing itself. because the thing itself has no form. It comes into a multiplicity of forms. And so all the people kill each other over what they're going to call it, which seems a little silly to me. I mean, like the Israelis and the Arabs are really, they're just two tribes that are fighting over which name to call it, you know. That's sad. It's the mind. People really get tyrannical with their mind. It's such deep fear. And for me, I guess I use the term God as a dualistic method because it's very easy for human beings to relate as a vehicle through dualism into non-dualism. So you start out with something which could be Maharaji or Christ or whatever. As Ramana Maharshi said, ultimately you see that God, Guru, and Self are one and the same thing. But you may use a dualistic technique in order to transcend the dualism. Okay? Sure. Questions for us to ponder. It's interesting about questions. I mean, I feel amazingly curious about everything, but I don't feel incomplete in the sense of I want to know. I'm surprised about this, but I mean I don't. Because it's all made apparent to me just as I'm ready to hear it. And what I keep learning how to do is to empty my mind. Not because a question starts to select what I see. Like if I say, how will we change the political structure? I then see the political structure as real because of that question. And that reality puts it into a power framework that gets it usually stuck in third chakra. And then I've got to get it out of there. So what I'm finding is as I frame questions, they start to create structures and I get trapped in the structure of my own mind. So what I'm learning to do is when I don't know something, I just assume it's none of my business, which is a kind of a funny anti-intellectual stance. But then I read avariciously. I mean, I suddenly just want to consume like Thomas Berry's beautiful book on ecology, or Robert Bella's book on the sociology of societies, or I find a book and I just can't, because the way that person has played with concepts is so, oh yeah, right, and I'm practically ecstatic as something clicks in of a way of characterizing. But in general, I don't really ask questions. Okay? I mean, I don't feel it's an arrogance either, because I feel in this question and answer period, I don't feel I know the answers and you don't know. I think we go through an exercise of form where we ask questions of ourselves and we give answers. And when I give an answer, people are going like that, because most of us give the same answer I give. So we're just playing a process until we trust that we know we know. That we know, not that we know, but that we know. See, wisdom, you already are all of it. And so when you don't know something, you're busy not knowing it. Boy, that's from some of you have said, all right, enough already. This guy's nuts. Yes.
Are you familiar with the Course of Miracles?
Whoops, I'm 3 minutes over.
The higher consciousness, and are they supportive and helpful, or are they?
Every method is a trap, and every method can be useful. And the important thing is you don't sit around and judge the method with your intellect. You take what you need and then go on. And all of those things have use in them, and then you take what you need and go on. And that's true of teachers, it's true of all of it. The only thing you owe a teacher is to get enlightened. You don't owe a teacher, anything in return other than to get free, if that's what the journey is about. And so I've picked up books or teachers that were very useful for a while, and then I began to see that I had no further business with them. That's all I say. And only you know whether you have business with that, whether when you pick it up. I mean, sometimes you read books and they're wonderful, and later any spiritual book just nauseates you. You don't ever want to see one again. They're all saying the same thing, and it's all words. And that's an interesting moment. Yeah? And then later you pick one up and open it, it's like jewels. Ladies and gentlemen, in India, when we meet and part, we say namaste, which means I honor the place in you where when you're in yours and I'm in mine, there is only one of us. Namaste.